Why is audio so complicated? Let me explain. It's actually very simple. I made a video yesterday where I talked about how mix bus and master bus are often interchangeable terms. And it took me till today and a bunch of your comments to realize that it's not the point of my video at all what that even is. The point of my video was to explain why audio is so hard. Number one, there's no method of standard for working. In other words, everyone does things however it works for them. Andrew Sheps does it his way. Mark Daniel Nelson does it his way. Everyone mixes the way they want. CLA does it his way. Tom Lord Alge does it his way. Everybody's working the way that works for them. Number two, there's no standard of terminology. A lot of people use words that have multiple meanings. And the only way to really understand what people are saying, not just think you understand it, and even worse, not just be confused by it, the only way is actually to run in your head through all the permutations of what words could mean based on what a lot of people use to describe what those words are doing. You have to run that. You got to run it every time somebody says anything that has multiple meanings in one of the words they're using. You have no choice. This is what makes audio so hard. In a lot of other fields, there's some word that means one thing and everybody knows what that is, and then you just move through so much easier. But a field like we're in with audio, we don't have that luxury. So in order to get the most out of tutorials, because that's my goal with this video, is really just the kind of what my goal was of the last video, but I kind of missed the point, I think. Because while the truth was, I was trying to really understand, I was trying to let you guys know that when I say mix bus, what I mean is the last bus. Because all my heroes that I follow, the last bus in their chain is always the final boss bus. It's always the mix bus. But what I've realized, what I had to let you know, is that if you're sitting there right now even, and that makes you crazy because you think master bus is the last thing, I want you to know this is exactly what I mean. You'll never change the way everyone talks. There's no way you're going to conform everybody to talk the way you want them to talk. But you can still get what you want and all the information that's there out of every tutorial that teaches you how to do anything if you don't let yourself anticipate what they're saying when you hear a word. In other words, when I hear somebody say mix bus, I know that could mean a couple things. It could mean the last bus if you're someone who comes from my school of understanding. And if you think it's not the last bus because the master bus is the last bus to you, basically I need to listen and think to myself, do they mean the last bus? Do they mean there's another bus after it that they call something else? What does this person mean? I need to run it. And it's the same thing with other things. Like, if somebody says VCA, are they talking about a volume fader? Are they talking about a type of compressor? You need to literally just do this, the mental permutation of what it could be. And then you'll only figure that out when you watch what they do, and then you work backwards, remembering the term they used, and now you know this is what this person means when they do whatever. You still get to the same result. See, that's the thing. I think people are under the misconception that audio is extremely complicated. I'm not trying to diminish how hard it is to get things to sound good, but the point is, it's not as complicated as a lot of you think it is, because you're being actually baffled, you're being bamboozled, you're being spun in circles with words that actually are just terminology that's all over the place. That's really it. A lot of people are talking about the same thing, calling it something different, and that is the problem. But it doesn't have to be the problem. The first step is to not anticipate what they mean. You can't ever anticipate what they mean until you see what they mean and you understand what they're doing, then work backwards. What did they use to describe it? Now I understand. It's really the only way. And the other thing is, so don't anticipate. In addition, just always have the blank slate open mind that what you think is the right way, there could possibly be another way. That's the other thing. Because reading a lot of your comments, I realize it's a very common thing in something like film scores, for example. When you're doing anything for like a movie or whatever, you might want to process the dialogue in one place. You might want to process your sound effects for the movie, and maybe there's a musical score that goes with it. So there's all these things. So the way I would work, just to describe it, for that, the last bus for me is always mix bus, come hell or high water, no matter what happens, because that's how I work. So in other words, I'll call what you're calling master bus the mix bus and just put it last. The other things are sound effects bus, dialogue bus, music bus, and then they all feed into the mix bus because that's how I work. So when I explain things to you, that's what you'll hear. But when other people talk, they may not. They may explain it where the mix bus is a bus that has effects process next to it in parallel, and that feeds into a master out, which is your master bus. So what I'm saying is there's no right way because everyone works different, because everyone visualizes different, because everyone has their own way of getting to the end goal. But we all get to the end goal. At the end of the day, if all your stuff isn't sent to the end, to the very, to the output, it's not getting to the output. If everything's not there, you ain't got that in the song. So all of us wind up getting to the same point, but because there's all these crazy terms, people are sitting out there being baffled, bamboozled, getting hung up on words. And this is not what you can do. You really have to be able to open up your mind to everything things could mean in order to really get the most out of audio. Like audio tutorials specifically, and in general audio, because you can improve what you're doing and even consider another possibility of how to work. If you don't fully understand what people are saying when they're saying it, you really have to understand why they're doing what they're doing. That's the most important thing. In other words, when I watched the Mark Daniel Nelson template video, I watched it twice, I mentioned. The first time I couldn't really get through it. And the second time, as I'm getting through it, I paused it and maybe rewound a few times to really understand what he's doing. Because it's so important to get the point. Not even exactly what he's doing, but the point. In other words, like why he takes his effects and has them go to the group buses that they belong to. In other words, why does the guitar have guitar verb, but why is he not sharing a verb between the guitar and maybe the snare drum or the vocals? Like, what's the purpose? The purpose is so he can print stems where that stem has nothing in it but the instrument that it's printed from. In other words, the guitars have only guitar and guitar reverb in them. They don't have snare reverb in them. They don't have vocal reverb in them. That wouldn't be a proper stem. It would be a stem with other things in it. It's not right. So he's got to do what he's doing so that he can get to his end goal of having stems being printed at the same time as the mix and not have to go back in time and solo things and take extra time to print things. Because that's the other thing. There's always like a way to work that takes longer and is harder. And there's a way to work that's smarter and takes less time and could get you to the exact same goal just quicker. And if you figure out those ways to work, you just are way ahead of the game because all we have is time. And this is something we do where the more time you spend making the stuff great and the less time you spend doing the stuff that could have been done quicker, like, for example, printing stems one at a time, soloing everything, or just do it all at once. I mean, there's no benefit to taking forever to do things. There's zero benefit. You don't get paid more to do it. There's just no reason to do it. So the point is, you might as well figure out how to streamline it to be able to get from place to place in the most quick and efficient way you can possibly get there. And that's the point, especially when you watch tutorials. Your goal is to understand what people are doing, not get hung up on the words, because everyone's DAW is different. FL Studio calls it the master bus. So it's like, I'm just saying, there's a lot of reasons people get hung up on stuff when you need to get the point. The point is all that matters. And tutorials, when everyone's coming from a different school, they can't possibly all feed you the words you're used to hearing. It just can't happen because nobody is taught from the same place. There's no standard for what things are. All there are is a bunch of terms that some of them overlap with each other, and it won't take you that long to wrap your head around this. Once you lose the idea that there's one way to do anything, lose that, okay? Because what you'll realize is things are just called different things, but they're the same thing. I hope this helps. I can't tell you how many times things like this would make me, in the early stages of learning, it would just ruin my whole day. when, man, why is he doing that? And this guy's doing this. And this guy, why are they all doing different things? They're really not. They're all doing very similar things, if not the same things, just calling them different things. So that's why audio just becomes harder than it needs to be. Let me know what you think. Throw it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because if I could get everyone listening here to be focused on the point, man, we'd be way ahead of the game. Every one of you who's trying to learn anything would be way ahead of the game. That's what it took for me, because I have to anticipate that I don't know what somebody's explaining before I listen. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Let me really understand it, because I know things could go haywire at any minute when a term they say is different than a term that I know something to mean. Now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's going on? You guys got this, all right? Piece of cake. It's way easier than you think. You got it. Talk to you guys soon. Evan Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this. Take it easy.